1245. Restate my assumptions. 1. Mathematics is the language of nature. 2. Everything around us can be represented and understood through numbers. 3. If you graph the numbers of any system, patterns emerge.
Greetings, children of the screen. Your friendly neighborhood nerd scum here once again, and I am joined by
Taylor.
And welcome to the final episode of What the Fuck Was That? Where today we're taking a look at pie.
You ever hear of Kabbalah? Jewish mysticism.
Tommy haunts him and he twists and turns in his bed.
The Torah, this 216 number.
This is insanity, Max.
Or maybe it's genius. I have to get that number.
Hold on, you have to slow down. You're losing it.
You are only a vessel from our God. You are carrying a delivery that was meant for us.
Our first video was for Tetsuo the Iron Man, and I felt that pie was a very nice bookend to close things out. So Taylor, what'd you think of pie?
It was beautifully confusing.
Yeah, it is. It is. That's a good description.
Thank you.
Especially for folks who aren't super good with math. Because the movie definitely presents mathematics in, like, a very beautiful and complex way. I'm sure there's a fair amount of bullshittery mixed in there, because, again, I'm not good with math, so I wouldn't know the fucking difference. So I'm sure there's going to be someone in the comics like, yeah, that's not the way math works. I don't give a shit, because I don't know, you know? Like, for me, it works out perfectly, and for what the movie's trying to do, it works really well. So, yeah. Beautifully confusing is, yeah, it's good. So, in the movie Pi, directed by Darren Aronofsky, we follow the character Max, who is a mathematician and a number theories guy. And basically, he has looked all throughout the world and realized that there are patterns in everything, because everything is based on math. And if you take any system of numbers and chart it over a long enough period of time, you will find a pattern. And therefore, there is a pattern in everything in nature. And if there's a pattern in everything in nature, then there must also be a pattern in the stock market. And he's trying to figure out this pattern whenever, like, when he's doing it one day, all of a sudden his computer flips out on him and spits out a 216-digit number and then shuts down. And as he goes trying to kind of fix his computer and figure out what's going on, he keeps running into people who've either had contact with or are looking for a 216-digit number. And over the course of the film, all these people either try to get it from him from some nefarious means or try to steer him back towards a more normal life with kind of a doomsayer kind of vibe where they're basically like, no man, you need to take a bath like Archimedes and relax and like take a fucking vacation because this shit is gonna drive you crazy. It's gonna fucking burn out your goddamn brain. And it turns out it might be God burning out his brain. So yeah, this movie's cool and fucked up. Beautifully confusing. Right on, Taylor. So, was there anything in this beautifully confusing movie that didn't work for you, or that was confusing enough for you that it kind of detracted from the film?
The weird, unexplained sequences with a brain.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't understand that at all.
Yeah, well, and I mean, like, that's a part of the larger scale of, like, hallucinations he's having. Which is interesting because, again, the movie, there are certain things that we know are hallucinations, but it's only because it's not in keeping with the style of the reality of the rest of the movie. But there are other things in it that it's very kind of vague about. So, like, the dude reading the paper who's, like, singing, like, did he really hallucinate that guy both times? Or was it just the first time? Or was that guy there, and then he zoned out thinking about stuff, and when he came back to, like, reality, the guy had just moved on. Like, it's a little bit vague, but he is having hallucinations, and it's not just visual. Like, there's also, like, he's imagining the sex happening with his hot next door neighbor, you know? And it's, like, very loud, and, like, every time he's trying to do something productive, it happens. And the stuff with the brain is always something that comes up when he is trying to, like, work this problem and he's getting frustrated and, like, into, like, a place, or when he's on the verge of, like, a new breakthrough. So, there's a lot of kind of visual metaphors in the movie, and while I'm not 100% what all of them mean, there are this kind of strange mix of things, like the ants that are inside of his computer, and also the fact that his computer, both in that scene and later on, once he's put in, like, the Hebrew guy's disk, like, when he goes back into the room, a lot of the computer components are, like, dripping like an organic fluid. So there's this very weird kind of, like, visual motif of organics inside of something artificial, and the idea of, like, the brain being, it's always outside of a body, in just, like, a place that it doesn't belong. And so for me, it kind of gives me this weird idea of, like, Max is this weird, isolated guy who tries to shut himself off from the world. He is essentially a brain, and that's all he is. He has no social life. He has nothing else going on. He's not very physically, you know, strong or anything like that. He is a brain that's trapped inside this, like, jungle of concrete and mechanics. And by the end of the movie, we see him make the decision to leave the brain behind and kind of a more fluid embrace of life. So again, I don't think that there's, like, a direct, literal translation that can be made for it, but I do think that it plays very well on a lot of the emotional themes that the main character is dealing with.
That had a lot more deep meaning than I thought. Oh
Well,
my god, that's amazing.
This is a Darren Aronofsky movie, so, like, that, he's a fucking great filmmaker, and he puts a lot into his movies, and this being his first movie, like, it's got a lot of crazy stuff in it that, like, once you've watched the movie a few times, you start picking up on the visual and, like, the thematic motifs and stuff like that. So yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff going on. Was there anything else that didn't work for you, or was that kind of the main thing?
No, that was it. Like,
okay.
Everything else was, like, just, it was, if you didn't understand, like, math in,
right.
in its simplicity, then, like, you wouldn't understand the rest of the movie, but
yeah.
luckily my dad was, like, smart, so
right.
he taught me all that.
Right on. Yeah, the only thing, like, for me, I love this movie, and I think it's, for a first-time filmmaker, it is extremely well made and does a lot of cool stuff. For me, the only thing that doesn't really work is some of the transitions, and I think a lot of that probably has to do with budget, and some of that also could be explained by Max's deteriorating mental state. For example, the best example is the Hasidic guys. In the final scene with them, where they're trying to get the number from him, and he's like, it was given to me, it wasn't given to you. That scene just cuts to him back at his place, you know? So it's like, how does that scene end? Or, did that scene even really happen? My feeling has always been that all the stuff with them really does happen because those characters interact with enough of the world and the environment in a natural way that it felt real. But again, because of Max's deteriorating mental state, we don't really know. And I'm just curious, like, his proclamation of, like, it's not meant for you, it was given to me, is that really enough to get him out of that situation? Now, the head of that group has said that they're non-violent and that Home Dude screwed up when he was slapping him around and stuff, so maybe they did just let him go. But for me, little things like that are kind of problems, but they don't hurt the overall movie. Like, even with those little jumps, I can still let go of it enough to kind of go with the movie. And again, like, it's clear that there are moments that Max, like, zones out or misses time or something, so I don't know. It's not perfect, it doesn't work for me all the time, but, yeah, like I said, it's still a great movie, and it doesn't ruin it for me. It just kind of adds to the fucking weirdness of it, which I love. Okay, so what worked for you in the film? Or, like, what was your favorite thing about it?
Well,
Because a lot of the stuff works.
a lot of it is amazing. Maybe the fact that they had, like, so many people surrounding him that actually wanted to, like, be there for him, and you could see that he physically and mentally couldn't, like, deal with that. Like,
Yeah.
he didn't understand what that meant.
Right.
And, like, he didn't know how to deal with that, but people were still there for him.
Yeah.
And then even after he was, like, done with all of his, you know, mental breakdowns and stuff, they were there for him. They
Right.
had his back and everything, and it was amazing. That's amazing to me.
Well, and again, it's very telling that, like, while, like, especially his neighbor, you know, the girl, like, she's always trying to do stuff for him and trying to help him out, but she is also the one that he, like, hallucinates fucking
Yeah.
in the place next door, and we never really learned that much more about her, so it's hard to tell if, like, he really did hear her having sex with people, and then, like, the hallucination grew out of that, or if it's just a manifestation of the fact that he wants her, but is so insecure and so isolated that he can't do anything about it. Because it's very telling that the only actual two relationships he has in the movie are with his former teacher, who's from a social situation that he was forced into, and is also a person who shares a similar obsession, even though that person has put it away. And the only other meaningful relationship he has is with a little girl that he does math problems with. But it is interesting that, like, you know, you have the old man who's trying to tell him, like, to fucking live his life and shit, you know, and then you've got the little girl who, like, she just thinks he's amazing, because she can't see all the problems he has, and there's the neighbor who clearly thinks there's something special about him, but also understands that, like, he's awkward and, like, she's trying her best, you know? But yeah, specifically, like, on the scene where, like, he's passed out and wakes up and they're all in his apartment and he just freaks out.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Are you okay?" And you can see on his face that there's a moment where he wants to say anything human to her, but all he can do is scream, "Get out."
Yes.
And again, like, I think that, again, plays a lot into, like, the different levels, thematic levels of his, like, psychological breakdown. And as we see the movie going on further and further, he just keeps pushing more and more people out, and he keeps becoming more and more paranoid. But you're right, that, like, once we do the turnaround at the end of the movie, like, the idea being that now that he's, like, turned his brain off with a drill, you know, he might be able to more readily embrace those relationships. So those people, except for the old man, which is unfortunate, like, he dies, and that's really, like, the straw that breaks the camel's back, where it's like, you know, especially when he sees the numbers and realizes that he's the one who caused that stroke. Like, him being so obsessive got the old man back into it, and it killed him, and I think that is, like, his final kind of, like, wake-up call, you know? So yeah, like, it's a very interesting point, and, like, it's nice that while we don't see it happen, there still is a light at the end of the tunnel for the character, and the way that the final shot kind of, like, goes up to the tree again, but it has different music than it had previously. Like, there's a different twang to the music, slightly more hopeful and uplifting. It's a nice way to end a movie that is really weird and dark and has some crazy stuff in it, for sure.
The ancient Japanese considered the go board to be a microcosm of the universe. Although, when it is empty, it appears to be simple and ordered. The possibilities of gameplay are endless. They say no two Go games have ever been alike, just like snowflakes. So, the Go board actually represents an extremely complex and chaotic universe. And that is the truth of our world, Max. It can't be easily summed up with math. There is no simple pattern.
As for me, as I said, I really love this movie. I think it's a great film. But among the things that I really like about it are just the fact that, like, it is a sci-fi movie, and it is, like, down and dirty, but in terms of the themes and the subtextual meaning, like, the movie really is trying to achieve something higher, and because the movie is about a character trying to achieve something higher, it works with the film. So freaking well. And there's so many things that work so well in it. Like you were saying, you know, just the idea of, like, the brain, which is kind of the idea of, like, almost in the same way of, like, THX. There's this idea that the human being has become nothing more than a mechanical component in this, like, world machine that we have built. And most of the characters, except for the ones you were talking about who are there trying to help him and, like, be human, most of the characters in the movie, they want him like a commodity. They want him for the piece of machinery that he has become and what he represents to their end goals. Like, the woman from the company, they offer him, like, the military-grade software chip, and he's the same thing. The way that he reacts to that chip is the same way that all those people react to him. And they're all trying to be his friends until they can't get what he wants out of them, and then they try to give him a manual readjustment, you know? Or a concussive readjustment, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, like, that's really interesting. Again, they even mirror it in, like, THX. There's a scene of a lizard crawling through a computer, and in this, there's, like, the ants and all the organic pieces coming out of the computer. So again, I really love that aspect of it. Darren Aronofsky in this also begins his method of visual and auditory montage, which he would perfect in Requiem for a Dream, which is kind of basically, he always was a fan of hip-hop, and so he took the idea of hip-hop where they sample stuff and started doing it with moving images. Where, if you notice in the movie, there's a series of visual motifs that repeat. So, like, the pills going into the hand, and, like, the shots of the leaves, and even, like, him walking down the city blocks. Like, if they're not the exact same image, they're shot in the exact same way, and they mirror the exact same way. But each time he adds an extra little beat or something to that. So not only does it reinforce the themes and, like, what the overall premise of the movie is, but at the same time, it gives a sense of escalation to things. Each time we go into one of those little montages, there's an extra little piece on it, so it, like, ramps up a little bit. And even in some of them, like, the speed with which Max is talking ramps up a little bit. So yeah, like, that is very interesting and very well done, even though it's not quite yet perfected. Beyond that, I just think that we know almost nothing about Max in this movie, but they still managed to make a character that is, like, extremely engaging and empathetic and, like, entertaining. And we feel for the guy, but we're also annoyed with the guy. Like, they managed to, while giving us very little, like, fed to us, there's enough context clues there that we can put together an idea of who this character is, enough that we can become emotionally connected to it for the story. And then the other thing that I want to say that I love about this movie is not even so much about the movie itself, but the way it was made. Like, this is a total fucking punk rock film, man. Like, Darren Aronofsky got in deep shit later on for, like, just going out into New York and shooting without permits, like, without any of the stuff you're supposed to do, just doing it. Subways, streets, like, half the stuff in this movie is just him and a bunch of dudes with a camera in a bag waiting until there's no one, you know, who can get them in trouble looking, and then them filming, you know? Like, and on the commentary he goes into, like, the different areas that they filmed and, like, which things were which, but, like, yeah, apparently he got into trouble with it later, and when you look through the cast and crew, you can see a bunch of people who have really bizarre names, because a lot of those people were they were members of a union at the time, a filmmaking union, and they didn't want to get in trouble, so they just put a fake name on it. So yeah, like, I absolutely think this movie is fantastic. I think it's well made. I think it's well executed, and I think that, like, I have nothing but respect for this filmmaker who was like, fuck this, hold no bars, I'm getting my fucking movie made, and I don't give a fuck. Pie, motherfucker!
Max, look! Pretty, huh? Can we do it, Max? Can we? How about 255 times 183? I got it! What's the answer?
I don't know, what is it?
46,665. See? How about 748 divided by 238? I got it! What's the answer?
Right on, guys, so there you have it. Those are our thoughts on the movie Pi. We pretty much tend to enjoy it. How would you rank this out of all the films that we've done so far on What the Fuck Was That?
Out of a 10, probably an 8, maybe even been a 9.
Right. Was
But-
this... Well, was this the one that you enjoyed the most out of them?
Definitely, yeah. Like,
Okay.
definitely.
And what was the one that was the most fucked up, that you enjoyed the least?
Maybe the last one we watched.
Vampire's Kiss?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was definitely that one.
Okay. I mean, the internet will disagree, but yeah. But no, that's fair. It's opinion, so, you know. But anyway, guys, thank you very much for joining us for this series, What the Fuck Was That? There's a playlist that I'm going to have linked down in the description below, so please go and check that out if you haven't seen those already. And also, if you like this one, please leave a like and share it with some friends. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe so you can check out those videos and all the other cool stuff we'll have coming out in the future. And I hope you guys have a good one. Thank you very much. Nerd Scum, out.
Later.
Pie, motherfucker! It's the end of the series. I gotta go out with something big. I don't know, I'll show them my tits. That's what I'll do.
Oh my god.
Thank you for watching my show. I hope you come back.
Why do you like this?
Why am I like what? Here, rub my tit.
No, I'm not gonna rub your tits.
Pinch my nipple for
No.
the people at home. Do it.
No.
Do it.
No.
Is this what you want, YouTube?
Go away.
No one's watching these videos anyway. Is this what you want? Is this what I have to do?